No matter how much wisdom we gain, or how many trophies we collect, or how well we plan, we all face the same fate. It's a very inconvenient truth, but Solomon didn't shy away from it. He wrestled with a truth we all try to ignore. Does any of this in this life really matter? Welcome to the Daily. I am Vince Miller. We just go through the Bible verse by verse here, chapter by chapter, every single day. I'm glad you're here. If you're just stopping by, we want you to join with us regularly. Right now, we're studying the book of Ecclesiastes, and we are in Ecclesiastes chapter 2, and I'm going to read verses 12 through 17 today. It states, "So I turned to consider wisdom and madness and folly, for what can the man do who comes after the king? Only what has already been done. Then I saw that there is more gain in wisdom than in folly, and there is more gain in light than in darkness. The wise person has his eyes in his head, but the fool walks in darkness. And yet I perceived that the same event happens to them all. Then I said in my heart, what happens to the fool will happen to me also. Why then have I been so very wise?" Great question, right? "And I said in my heart that this is also vanity. For of the wise as of the fool, there is no enduring remembrance, seeing that in the days to come, all will have been long forgotten. How the wise dies, just like the fool. So I hated life, because what is done under the sun was grievous to me, for all is vanity and striving after the wind." That was a really optimistic text there from Solomon today. As we know, Solomon is the wisest man who ever lived. He stood at the absolute apex of human achievement, for sure. And yet, at the end of his life and reflections, he reached a disturbing conclusion. His wisdom and toil would eventually be left to another, whether wise or fool. What he sees here is the injustice of wisdom and toil. No matter how much effort he or we pour into our work or put into protecting our wisdom, someone else would always reap the benefits. Someone else would always enjoy the wealth that he worked for all his life. Someone else would take his throne and do unwise things with the wisdom in his kingdom. And worst of all, his wisdom couldn't alter the unavoidable. Do you see that? It couldn't alter the unavoidable. Both the wise and the fool share the same fate. Death comes for all, erasing their memory from the minds of future generations. Now, we can see in this text today that this truth and reality really broke Solomon. He said, "So I hated life." He finally admitted it. Not because his life was just meaningless in itself, but because its bounties were brief, passing to those who did not earn them. Now, the temptation is to look at Solomon's words and despair, which is exactly what I did at first glance. But his frustration points us to truth. If all we labor for is under the sun, it will never satisfy. Everything we build, everything we achieve, will eventually be given to someone else. If our meaning is found in our work, we will be crushed eventually by the reality that it won't last. I mean, we all know companies fail. Businesses are sold. People are fired. Careers are altered. Just ask people working for the government today. All happens in the blink of an eye sometimes, doesn't it? I know many of you have been there. So have I. But we find hope if we shift our focus above the sun instead of under it, beyond the temporary world. Our labor, when accomplished for God, has eternal significance. The Apostle Paul echoed this in 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse 58. He said, "Therefore, my beloved brothers, be steadfast, immovable, always abounding in the work of the Lord, knowing that in the Lord your labor is not in vain." There's one place that your work always works, when it works for the Lord. So what do we do with this? Do we stop working? Do we stop striving? Do we just let life happen? No, no. We have to shift our perspective. So here's your challenge today. Stop working for things that won't outlive you. Stop working for things that won't outlive you. Start investing in what will outlast you. Just change your perspective and your activity. And how do you do this? Well, you serve with eternity in mind, said the Apostle Paul. Work as if you're building something for God, not just for yourself. Invest in people, not just projects. Prioritize relationships over rewards, faithfulness over fame, obedience over outcomes. Whatever you do, do it for the glory of the Lord. Colossians 3:23, of course. If your toil is focused on earthly gain, you, like Solomon, will hate your toil. You will hate your life. But if your toil is for the kingdom, your labor is never in vain. I love you guys. I pray this bless you today. If it has, please just hit that share button. Share it with someone else, and I'll see you right back here again.